Why aren't dinosaurs mentioned in the Bible then? Well, you notice dinosaurs are really the kind of the bullet by which evolutionary ideas are delivered, and they start at an early age, like the Jesuits. I defy anybody, find me a single primary school in the country, one, anywhere, where there is not a children's book about dinosaurs. Honestly, if I were to offer £1,000 in the press, I think my money would be very safe. Books about, books designed to teach children to read at the age of 3 or 4 or 5 about dinosaurs. And if you open it up, on the first page, the opening words, the 4 first words in the entire book are going to be what? Millions of years ago. That's how it always begins. And that's how these ideas are delivered. Now, in fact, dinosaurs are not a thing. If I were being deliberately trying to stir controversy, if I were deliberately argumentative and controversial, if I were using the Peter Hitchens style of arguing, I would say dinosaurs don't exist. And that would be true in the sense that it's not one thing. It's lots of different kinds of animals. And then we slap a label on all of them and call them dinosaurs. With the arrogant belief that we know for a fact that they don't still exist today. But of course we don't know that. There are books that say no human being has ever seen a living dinosaur. Again, how can you be certain? Is there not a lot of evidence to the contrary? And the answer is there is. They went extinct 65 million years ago. Did they really though? Did they really? So why aren't they mentioned in the Bible? The answer is they are mentioned in the Bible. We'll get to it. Were there dinosaurs on board the ark? Yes, there were. We saw earlier on it's land animals that breathe air. So yes, that would include dinosaurs. Baby ones, obviously, to quote the one and only Kent Hovind yet again, the one and only Kent Hovind, he says, just make sure that you get a pink one and a blue one, that you get 2 babies and you're good, alright? Weren't they already extinct by then anyway? No. Okay, on we go. So the word dinosaur was invented by Richard Owen. He's an alumnus of Lancaster Grammar School. He invented the word in 1841 from the Homeric Greek Deinos, meaning fearfully great. Deinossauros, a fearfully great lizard. It's a bit of a pretentious word if you think about it, and it was invented in 1841, so you won't find the word anywhere used before 1841 because it didn't exist yet. But you'll find things which, when you read the description, they correspond more or less to dinosaurs. Okay? On we go. So why aren't dinosaurs mentioned in the Bible? Because the word dinosaur didn't exist yet. On we go. What were they maybe called instead? Well, we have this thing called a dragon. Oh, but everybody knows dragons are mythical creatures. For a mythical creature, it certainly pops up in an awful lot of stories, like the flood myth. You end up wondering whether it really is such a myth. Because all over the world you have stories about dragons, and you have pictures of dragons. And if the word dinosaur wasn't invented till 1841, what maybe would people have called these dinosaurs if they had met one? They probably would have referred to them as dragons, I think. Yes? Okay. This is Daniel chapter 14. Now that won't be in a Protestant Bible. Not only are several books missing from a Protestant Bible, but even books that they do have are missing some chapters. The last 2 chapters of the book of Daniel are not in a Protestant Bible. Many of them were removed because the Protestant heresiarch who founded that particular religion didn't like what that book of the Bible taught. There's a bit of a problem when if you're Martin Luther, or I don't know, whoever else, Melanchthon, any of these guys, and you say sola scriptura, we can only believe it if it's in the Bible, if it then turns out that there's a book in the Bible which teaches this thing you say isn't true, you have to remove that book. So for instance, 1 Maccabees and 2 Maccabees are missing from a Protestant Bible. What do you find in Maccabees? You find them after the battle praying for the dead and offering sacrifice for the dead, which is something that Protestants don't do and don't believe in, but there it is in the Bible. So those books have to go. Martin Luther was particularly against the idea of chastity and vows of chastity and virginity and that kind of thing. He thought everybody should marry and you shouldn't have nuns and you shouldn't have priests and so on. And yet you have the Epistle of St. James that talks about that very thing. So the Epistle of St. James has to go. I mean, he himself had a big problem with chastity, which explains a lot of what happened with him. We won't go into that now. The point is, very interesting, Daniel 14. There was a great dragon in that place, and the Babylonians worshipped him. And the king said to Daniel, Behold, thou canst not say now that this is not a living God. Adore him, therefore. By the way, Daniel is showing to the Babylonians, I worship the living God. Living God means the one that actually exists, the one that's really alive. And in fact, this is just an idol. And I think in the temple they left food out every night, and in the morning it was gone. And they say, there, that proves that it's a... And Daniel catches them at it. And of course, the priests of the temple are removing the food overnight when no one's looking. So he catches them at it and he says, there you go, I told you it was just an idol. It's not a real thing, it's an inanimate object that you worship. So then the king says to him, well, how about this one? We worship this God, this is definitely living. And he shows him a dragon. Thou canst not say now that this is not a living God, adore him therefore. And Daniel said, I adore the Lord my God, for he is the living God, but that is no living God. Give me leave, O king, and I will kill this dragon without sword or club. And the king said, I give thee leave. Permission, in other words. And then Daniel took pitch and fat and hair and boiled them together, and he made lumps and put them into the dragon's mouth, and the dragon burst asunder. So he kills it by feeding it hairballs dipped in fat. So it's going to think that they're delicious and eat them, and then it dies. Next. This is from Job. Job is having a conversation with God, and he's complaining, and God says to him, you've got no business complaining, you don't understand my intention or what I have in mind. Where were you when I made the world? Where were you when I did all these things? And he says, look at all these things I created. Behold Behemoth, whom I made with thee. At the start of the world, in other words, during the 6 days of creation. He eateth grass like an ox. His strength is in his loins, and his force in the navel of his belly. He setteth up his tail like a cedar. The sinews of his testicles are wrapped together. His bones are like pipes of brass. His gristle like plates of iron. He's a big old beast. He is the beginning of the ways of God. Some people suggest that that means he's the biggest animal of all the ones God made. Which is why, of course, God would be saying, behold, have a look at this guy, I made him. He's the beginning of the ways of God who made him. He will apply his sword. To him the mountains bring forth grass. There all the beasts of the field shall play. He sleepeth under the shadow in the covert of the reed and in moist places. The shades cover his shadow. The willows of the brook shall compass him about. Behold, he will drink up a river and not wander, and he trusteth that the Jordan may run into his mouth. So he lives on the river bank underneath the trees. And he's not a meat-eating animal, he eats grass, but he's so big that you wouldn't be surprised if he drank up the whole river. Okay, here we go. The commentaries very often will say, oh, it's an elephant or it's a hippopotamus. He setteth up his tail like a cedar. The Latin Vulgate says, constringit, he brandishes, caudam suam quasi cedrum. Now a cedar is a particularly big tree. They live to an old age and they have very big thick trunks. Who's seen the tail of a hippopotamus? or the tail of an elephant. It's like a bit of string. There's absolutely no way that that is a hippopotamus or an elephant. I think it's a great big sauropod dinosaur. That's the only thing that really fits the description. Yeah, okay, on we go. Here's a couple of references from the Psalms. Thou by thy strength did make the sea firm. Thou didst crush the heads of the dragons in the waters, says Psalm 73. Thou shalt walk upon the asp and the basilisk, and thou shalt trample underfoot the lion and the dragon, says Psalm 90. Interestingly, some of these modern translations, whenever it mentions dragon, they render it as snake or serpent. Well, there is a sort of superficial similarity, but notice it says the asp and the basilisk. Those are actual snakes, and it names them. But then it says a dragon.
Is Psalm 90 the one in Compton?
It is the one in Compton, exactly, yeah. Super aspidum et basiliscum ambulare.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I think that's the same
I just
one.
had never paid attention to that.
No, it's the same one, I think, yeah. The word in Latin is draconis,
Yeah.
the declension. Yeah. Praise the Lord, from the earth, ye dragons, and all ye deeps. Makes it sound like dragons also live in the depth of the sea, right? And the point of that psalm is, again, how amazing God is. He's the only one who could have done this. He made everything, including the depths of the ocean, including the dragons. On we go. So, were there dinosaurs on board the Ark? Yes. Right, next. Weren't they already extinct by then anyway? Okay, no. Dinosaurs and men lived alongside one another, and when you say that to a modern person, it blows their mind, and they'll either go insane or they'll just collapse laughing at you. But have a look at this. This is the grave. It's in Carlisle Cathedral. Bishop Bell died in 1496. The authorities there have taken since to covering it with carpets and denying its existence because they got so tired of the constant stream of people, including tourists from all over the world, wanting to see the dinosaurs on his grave. There we go, look at that. Some of these, just for comparison, just so no one can claim, oh, it might not be, it might just be a picture badly drawn. That's clearly a bat, can we agree? Yes? And that is clearly a fish. And that's a dog, and that's a bird. On we go. What are these two things here? Have a good old look at that. What on earth could they be? Now you can see the brass is rather faded. I mean, it is after all 500 and something odd years old, right? But those are clearly two dinosaurs. And this thing down here might be as well. You can't really see the head of it, but it has teeth and it has a sort of spiky crest on top of its head and a great big long tail. Right, on we go. This is the Nile mosaic from Palestrina in Italy. It's a great big thing. It covers an entire, well, originally it would have covered an entire floor. I think in more recent times it's been moved and it's on display. But it's a Roman mosaic, I think 1st century Roman mosaic, and it's the scene of the Nile, but they use it to demonstrate there's lots of stuff going on, lots of activity. You can see people on boats. You can see all these different animals. There's a chap up there shooting birds with a bow and arrow. And here is where we want to focus, because this is very interesting. This is zoomed in. The names of the animals are all in Greek. And they're all animals that we would recognise today. Apart from, can you see, curiously enough, these black gentlemen here with their bronze shields are not even bothered by it. They're fighting off something else over there. But there's this funny old thing in the river here with a head on top of a neck and a big jaw with teeth in it. And it says, you might not be able to read, Crocodilopardalis. It's a crocodile leopard. Now, what's a crocodile leopard? It's not a crocodile because they don't have a neck, for one thing. They can't lift their head up and turn it around like that. But it's something, it looks to me like a dinosaur. But I don't know. Maybe that's just me. Maybe there's some frightfully clever answer for explaining it away. Here we go. Angkor Wat Temple in Cambodia, which I gather is from around about the 1200s, so it's been there 800 odd years. Cambodia, of course, is next to Vietnam. It's in what used to be called Indochina. And just to put this in context, there are lots of stone carvings of different animals and whatnot. This is this one here, zoomed in. Ah, look at that. What does that look like? I would say it's pretty obviously a Stegosaurus. Now, I think Wikipedia and various other people will tell you, oh, no, what you're seeing is really a lizard, and those are just leaves behind it in the background. Well, I mean, you can believe that if you want to, but that looks like a Stegosaurus to me, it really does. Okay? Alright, this is a mosaic from this country actually, Gloucestershire, circa 300 AD, late Roman, and we have these two. I would say that, obviously it's a very stylized picture, but they look like sea creatures. You also have a fish behind it, but they have very long necks. So sea monsters with very long necks. On we go. This is from the Golan Heights in Palestine. What is that? Not very clear, and it is very worn away. Maybe it's something else. Maybe I'm mistaken about that, possibly. But on the other hand, what if I'm not? Here we go. This is a cave painting from Kuwait, in the Middle East. You notice these are from all over the place. There's quite a lot of different cave paintings with dinosaurs on them. I'm going to give you a selection of a few of them here. And I think the only answer the evolutionist has to all of these, that's a zoomed in thing, the original is up there. If you compare it with the other animals and with the human beings and so on, it's not that stylistically done, it is pretty clear what it is. But the only answer is going to be from the evolutionist, oh no, it's not really that, it's something else. And with any one image, you can say, well, maybe, perhaps. But I think all of them put together, the overall preponderance of the evidence, are they all something else and accidentally end up looking like dinosaurs? I don't think that's reasonable. I think any reasonable person, without a very strong prejudice in favour of evolution, is going to have to say, yeah, that's basically a dinosaur. Right, on we go. That's from the United States, and it's cave drawings of the Anasazi Indians. It's in Utah. I think it's a place called Natural Bridges in Utah. That's the original one there. This is it enhanced. Yeah, he setteth up his tail like a cedar. Right, these are the Ica stones, which are from Peru, from between the years 100 BC and AD 800. There's loads of them, and they all show different things. Many of them have dinosaurs on them. Some have dinosaurs and human beings. So I've picked 4 here. This one you can see a chap riding a dinosaur. This is a chap fighting with a dinosaur. He's stabbing it with some sort of knife, and the dinosaur here has got him by the leg. There's some different sorts of dinosaurs on here, and this is a human being, and he seems to be, I don't know what he's doing there, cutting its neck or something. Very interestingly, the dinosaurs have these sort of circles on their skin, which I think more recently it's come out, there's some sort of evidence that they did have some sort of pattern like, because you can't tell that from just remains. Okay, that's an image, that's a visual image where you would have had to have seen the real thing alive. If you discover a skeleton in the ground, you've got no way of knowing what its skin looked like from just the bones. Now, if you look that up on Wikipedia or any of these evolutionist places, they'll tell you, oh yes, the Ica stones are well-known frauds. I think at some point, once these were discovered, there was a trade in Ica stones because people discovered they sold for a lot of money, particularly to people in North America. So at that point, people started manufacturing them, and there were some fake ones that got in there. But that doesn't mean that all of them are fake. The original ones are genuine. The original ones are genuine, I think. Okay? But again, like I say, these can all be fake, and it still doesn't make any difference. You're going to have to prove that every single one of these things I'm going to show you, plus a great many more that we won't have time for, are fake. If even one of them is true, then there's serious problems for the evolutionary worldview. On we go, please. So, this is a Mesopotamian cylinder seal from Uruk, from Iraq. It's in the Louvre. That's the original, I forget, is it made of lead? It's made of metal of some kind. That's the impression it leaves. You roll it, and it's like a seal, like we would have a ring that you leave your impression in wax, except with this one, you roll it, and it's these creatures here with very long necks. What are they? They're not recognisable as any animal today. On we go. Another cave drawing from Peru in South America. What's that big animal that they're all standing around? Next slide. Okay. Yeah. This is History of the Nordic Peoples, Olaf Magnus, 1555. His book wasn't an account of far-off exotic people, but the story of his own country, Sweden. His familiarity with the land described, however, didn't prevent the occasional tall tale, says this website. So this is a tall tale, really. Everything else in it is maybe true, but this is a tall tale. The crude woodcut shows the noble King Harold and his loyal servant killing the dragon that was supposed to kill them. While the king drives a razor through the beast's navel, the servant boxes the poor thing about its ears with a femur and a skull. So this is from sort of Swedish history. We obviously have St. George killing the dragon in England. You find this in countries all over the world. Stories about dragons. Now just, if we take a moment out and just think about what it would be like if dinosaurs were alive alongside men. If you lived next to a dinosaur, it would be a very unpleasant experience, and you'd find that, you know, it would eat your sheep from the sheepfold, wouldn't it? It would menace your flocks, and occasionally small children would go missing, and then one day a local chap would step up and kill it, and then he'd instantly become the local hero, and people would tell stories about him for generations, wouldn't they? It would be a very unpleasant, and of course they would have been hunted pretty much to extinction. They're very unpleasant creatures to be around. Yeah, that is, I think, a more credible explanation. Right, on we go, please. This is a cave drawing in Colombia. I came across this was a year or two ago. Rock art found in the Amazon rainforest carries images of the earliest inhabitants living alongside giant ice age creatures, researchers say. This is the BBC. Now, I haven't identified any dinosaurs in there, but I just wanted to draw your attention. I included it, not because there's dinosaurs in it, but simply because they at least admit here, in a moment of rare candour, that it has all sorts of animals in there that we don't recognise in these cave paintings. On we go. This is an Aboriginal drawing. The Aborigines have all sorts of stories about this great monster called Yaru. And this is a drawing of Yaru. That's them, you know, they're not very happy. Some of them have got spears, and if you look closely, you'll see that Yaru has eaten one of them. Yeah, naughty old Yaru has. He's not very friendly. There we are. Right. This stone carving is from Cuenca. What kind of an animal is that supposed to be? And this is a Nazca vase. The Nazca were a people who lived in Peru a few centuries back. This is a similar thing from Bolivia in South America. These bronze statues, I should have made a note of it, and I haven't how old they are, but they are from Ghana in Africa. And this is ceramic, and it was uncovered in Italy again. I haven't made a note of how old it is, but it is old, as in it's old. It's not, you know, it's not something that somebody made yesterday. It's something that somebody made a few hundred years back. On we go, please. This is the Chateau Azellerido tapestry in France. There's a lion there which is sinking its teeth into, I don't know if you can see this, but it is in fact a dragon. And there's a tiger at the top. Well, you have to, okay, maybe they included a mythical animal, but they included a mythical animal in amongst real animals which are quite recognisable. That's quite obviously a lion, and that's quite obviously a tiger. Let me go, please. This is from the Harley Bestiary. Now, these are books which in the Middle Ages were very... they were a thing in the Middle Ages where obviously you didn't have modern communications and you didn't have modern travel. So people liked to put together a book of all the animals in the world in God's creation. What did God make? What are all these animals? So they'd have a picture and a description of it. There's loads of them. That's the Aberdeen Bestiary, which is from the reign of Henry VIII. And the writing at the side, I think it might be paraphrasing Pliny, who says the same thing, that the dragons, they don't actually, the way they kill the elephants is they wrap themselves around them and trip them up. And sometimes it goes wrong and the elephant falls the wrong way and crushes the dragon and they both die. Anyway, on we go. Yeah, this is it. This is what it says. The dragon is bigger than all the other snakes or all other living things on earth. For this reason, the Greeks call it dracorn. From this is derived its Latin name, Draco. The dragon, it is said, is often drawn forth from caves into the open air. So it lives in caves very often, causing the air to become turbulent. The dragon has a crest, a small mouth, and narrow blowholes through which it breathes and puts forth its tongue. Its strength lies not in its teeth, but in its tail, and it kills with a blow rather than a bite. It is free from poison. They say that it does not need poison to kill things because it kills anything around which it wraps its tail. From the dragon, not even the elephant with its huge size is safe, for lurking on paths along which elephants are accustomed to pass, the dragon knots its tail around the legs and kills them by suffocation. Dragons are born in Ethiopia and India, where it is hot all year round. Very interesting. They seem to think that that's a real thing. On we go. Marco Polo, of course, famously visited China. How are we doing for time? Maybe I don't want to read all of this, but he gives a description of a dragon, and he says the same thing. They lurk in caverns, from whence at night they issue to seek their food. And he says the way that you kill them is you work out where they drag themselves along the ground, and you go and fix sort of iron spikes in, and then it drags itself over the spikes and kills itself. Very dangerous animal. You don't want to go head to head with it. You'll lose. Right? You have to kind of trap it. On we go. This is the same quote. It's from his The Travels of Marco Polo. And then he says, yes, here we go. So once you've killed it, the gall is highly esteemed in medicine. In cases of a mad dog bite, a pennyweight of it dissolved in wine is administered. It is also useful in accelerating parturition when the labour pains of women have come. A small quantity of it being applied to carbuncles, pustules, and other eruptions of the body, they are presently dispersed. It is efficacious in many other complaints. The flesh also of the animal is sold at a dear rate, being thought to have a higher flavour than other kinds of meat, and by all persons it is esteemed a delicacy. So that if you kill a dragon, you can sell the meat. People love dragon meat, and also the bones and teeth and other bits of it are used in medicine. In fact, there's loads of Chinese recipes. I don't think I've included them here, but lots of ancient Chinese medicine where it calls for dragon bones or dragon teeth as part of the recipe, as though that's a real thing that you can just get hold of. On we go. Okay, Pliny the Elder, I mentioned before. He says, I wonder whether the Aberdeen Bestiary is really paraphrasing him, because he talks about dragons killing elephants by kind of tripping them up and strangling them. Ethiopia produces dragons not so large as those of India, but still 20 cubits in length. Yeah. Okay, on we go. Flavius Philostratus says the same thing. India is girt with dragons of enormous size. Now the marsh kind are sluggish in their habits and are 30 cubits long, and they have no crest standing on their heads, which surely means there's another kind that do, right? Here we go. Alien. Right, this is Alexander the Great. Through some parts of India into commotion and took possession of others, he encountered, among many other animals, a dragon, which lived in a cavern and was regarded as sacred by the Indians, who paid it great and superstitious reverence. Accordingly, the Indians went to all lengths imploring Alexander to permit nobody to attack the dragon, and he assented to their wish. Now, as the army passed by the cavern and caused a noise, the dragon was aware of it. It has, as you know, the sharpest hearing and keenest sight of all animals. And it hissed and snorted so violently that all were terrified and confounded. It was reported to measure 70 cubits, although it was not visible in all its length, for it only put its head out. At any rate, its eyes were said to have been the size of a large, round Macedonian shield. Now, I've put an asterisk next to dragon, because that's my word. I changed it. The text that I came across was a Loeb edition, where they have English on one side and Latin on the other, and they rendered it as a snake. And in fact, the editor had put a subtitle into the text which said a monstrous serpent.
But did it say Draco?
It does, yeah. Well, it's in Greek.
Well, that's
I'll
what
show
it's...
you.
Oh, okay.
I'll show you. On we go. Right, there's the text, there's the Greek on one side, there's the English on the other, 1959, translated by Schofield, who I think was the librarian of Cambridge University in the middle of the 20th century. Anyway, so and that's how he look at that. A monstrous snake is his subtitle.
So what's the Greek?
A serpent. Well, I'll show you. Here we go.
Drakon.
Eta hodrakon estheto. That's hodrakon. It's a dragon. And if you look up in Liddell and Scott, it will tell you hodrakon means a dragon. Now there's a similarity between a serpent and a dragon, obviously. So you're going to have a certain amount of metonymy where people use one word to mean another. But it's a dragon. It doesn't say a snake. Yes? Okay, on we go. But yeah, that's another thing. It hissed and snorted so violent. Does snakes snort? Okay, let's go on. This is the dictionary of the American Dictionary of the English Language, the very first edition. I think nowadays it's called Merriam-Webster, but the original one was by a chap
Is
called
that when
Webster.
they changed all the spelling?
Sorry?
Is that the one where they changed all the spelling?
Oh, I don't know about
Yeah.
that. I suspect that might have happened earlier, but yeah.
Alright.
It says dragon, noun, a genus of animals, the Draco. They have 4 legs, a cylindrical tail, and membranous wings radiated like the fins of a flying fish. Now notice this is 1828. The word dinosaur was, does anybody remember the year?
1841.
1841, so this is 13 years before that word existed. But it talks about a dragon as though it's a real thing. It doesn't say a mythical beast. The current edition, of course, would say that. But the original edition in 1828 didn't say that. On we go. This is Dr. Johnson's original dictionary. Remember, Dr. Samuel Johnson was the chap over here in the 1700s. And that is the title page of the original. This is a Victorian edition. Okay? The original dictionary by Samuel Johnson, Dictionary of the English Language, in which the words are deduced from their originals, explained in their different meanings, and arranged by the names of the writers in whose works they are found. Let's have a look then. So, dragon. A kind of winged serpent. Well, that's nice and straightforward, isn't it? Right, what does the Victorian edition say, I wonder? Dragon. A kind of imaginary winged serpent. There's only one word different. That one word has been added. The original one said, a kind of winged serpent. Simple as that. And they've turned it into a kind of imaginary winged serpent. Okay, on we go. That's Lewis and Short. Lewis and Short, some of you will know, is the equivalent of Liddell and Scott. Liddell and Scott is the definitive dictionary of Greek. I think Liddell was Professor of Classics at Christ Church, Oxford in the Victorian era, and his daughter was Alice Liddell, who's the Alice in Wonderland Alice. And Lewis and Short is the Latin dictionary equivalent of Liddell and Scott. Draco Draconis, it says, a sort of serpent, a dragon. Right, on we go. This is the Chinese zodiac. Some of you will know this already. So you have, the rat, the ox, the tiger, the rabbit, the pig, the dog. There's 11 real animals that exist today, and one, the dragon, that's supposedly mythical. Is it just possible, perhaps, that that one mythical animal really isn't mythical and is as real as all those other 11? On we go. Okay, so why weren't they extinct by the time of Noah's Ark? They weren't. No, they were still alive. Okay. They might not even be extinct today. This gets really interesting. So this is Monterey Bay, California, 1925, and the body of what I think is a pliosaur washed up on the shore. It had a 20-foot long neck. You can very clearly see there's a head with a jawline, with a mouth and a long neck. Right? So it's not a dolphin, it's not a whale, it's not a killer whale as some people have suggested. Those animals don't have necks. But it was enormous. And this sort of thing does happen once in a while. We don't know what lives in the depths of the oceans. Next slide. Scituate Harbour in Massachusetts, on the other side of the country, the east coast. This is 1970. This is a newspaper report about it. Shades of Loch Ness Monster. Again, it's a great big old long sea creature. Unfortunately, I couldn't get a clearer photo than that, but I think you can sort of see it has a neck, it has a head, and it's massive, and it kind of has flippers and whatnot. On we go. This was in the 1970s. Now, the claim out there is that this is a basking shark. They pulled this out of the water. It was already dead, and it had already been decomposing for some time, and they threw it back not long after because the smell was unbearable. But they thought it was a plesiosaur. Now, look it up on Wikipedia or anywhere else, and even some creationist organisations will say, no, it's a basking shark. Maybe. That's a commemorative stamp that the Japanese government issued, okay, afterwards. So they seem to think it was really a plesiosaur. Anyway, on we go. This is 1990, Oregon, so the kind of top left corner of the USA, another sea monster. Look at it, it's enormous. Great big long tail. What is that thing? I don't know. But it could be a dinosaur, could be a sea monster. On we go. Just a few more recent examples. This is from 2022, October, 3 months ago. A mystery sea monster the size of a truck with long white hair washes up, mystifying beachgoers. Okay? And they just say, oh yeah, we don't really know. A similar creature washed up on a beach in the Philippine province of Oriental Mindoro in 2018. We don't know what it is. On we go. That was, I don't know, I came across that. I honestly don't think that is a dinosaur. It might not be, it might be. The point is, it washes up on the shore and they say we don't know what it is. Okay, and that was 9th of December 2022. That's about a month ago. So I'm just making the point, this kind of thing happens all the time. Stuff washes up on the shore and people don't know what it is. On we go. Okay, it's Nessie, mystery skeleton washed up on Scotch beach, leads to speculation that it's the Loch Ness Monster. There it is there. And there's a chap standing on top of it. This is the Scotsman. Again, is it a dinosaur? Any one of these things might not be. But it has to dissolve this silly, arrogant notion that we know everything and we know all the animals out there, and dinosaurs don't exist and no one's ever seen one. How do we know that for certain? How can we both be so sure of that? On we go. Sea monster mystery beast washed up on British beach, leaving experts baffled, says this headline from 2000 and, I can't really read that, is it 2018, 2008, something like that? 18, so 5 years ago. 4.5 years ago. A strange 5-foot-long carcass of a sea beast turned up on Rossley Beach in Gower, Wales, leaving locals terrified. The dead monster has a long head with a huge jawline and a slim tail. Kind of looks like a dragon, doesn't it? Doesn't look like anything I think anybody would claim is alive today. Next. The Loch Ness Monster, I put this in here because there's always someone who's going to ask about it anyway. That's Wikipedia, which gives a list of all the sightings. St Columba, which we'll come back to, and then there's like 1 or 2 in the Victorian period, and then it jumps to about 1933, and all of these are from the 30s. What happened is they built a new road next to Loch Ness that runs along the side, along the contours of the side of the hill next to the loch. And ever since they opened that new road, the sightings of the Loch Ness Monster just went through the roof. So there might well be something in there. Also, it's very deep, and they think there are, in fact, underground caverns underneath the sides of the loch. On we go. This is St Columba in the year 565. This is what it says. Yeah, so there's a monster, and then I think, I'm not going to read all of it, but it says, Columba made a sign of the cross and said, "Do not go further, do not touch the man, go back at once." The creature stopped, as if it had been pulled back with ropes, and fled, and Columba and the Picts gave thanks for what they perceived as a miracle. So it's in the life of St. Columba. He meets this sea monster in Loch Ness. On we go. Yeah, 1934, a man called Mr. Arthur Grant nearly hit it on his motorcycle. He was coming along the road at about 1 a.m. or something, and he ran across this monster. and he drew a sketch afterwards, which that's what he drew it as looking like. Looks like a dinosaur to me. Okay. He was a veterinary student as well, by the way. Just mentioned that. That's Loch Ness up there. So Inverness is the town at the top, and the Moray Firth, and then so Loch Ness is this great big long thing here, around 27 miles long. I think the widest part is something like 1.7, 1.8 miles wide. So most of it is about 1.5 miles wide. So there's a lot of water, and it is deep as well. It is deep. It goes down a long way. It's not a little puddle. Okay. All right, on we go. Okay, this is from Central Africa, Mokele-Membe, I think is how you pronounce that. Meaning the one who stops the flow of rivers. Does that ring any bells, by the way? Job, Behemoth. According to the traditions of the Congo River Basin, Mokele-Membe is a large territorial herbivore. In a March 2009 episode of the History Channel series Monster Quest involved William Gibbons, Rob Mullin and local guide Pierre Sima, and the two-man film crew from White Wolf Productions. While no sightings were reported on the expedition, the team found evidence of a creature in a cave on the other side of air vents. The team also received sonar readings of a very long serpentine shape in the water. On we go. I think basically what happened here is, in fact, the original, I forget when this was it in the 80s or 90s? And the people from America happened to be there, and the locals were telling them about this great animal, and they said, well, what is it? Oh, it's, you know, they struggled to describe it, so they kept showing them drawings. Is it this? No. Is it that? No. And then eventually, one of them drew that, and the one on the right here, they ran out of drawings of animals. No, it wasn't any of those things. So they started thinking, well, what could it be? And they showed them this. They went, oh yeah, that's him. That's the one. That's Mokele-Membe. He lives over there. Don't get too close. He's not very friendly. Now, the Congo Basin is this whole area here. You could basically fit most of the United States into there, and you could easily fit all of Europe into it, including filling in the sea around the British Isles and Scandinavia. That's how big that is. It is vast. It's not very populous, and a lot of it is jungle, and a lot of it is marsh and swamp. It's not a great country to live in, really. And it's right in the middle. This is the Democratic Republic of the Congo, this one country here, but obviously it extends a bit beyond there. Right, on we go. So, we have pictures, we have carvings, we have engravings of dinosaurs, written accounts of dragons are all over the place. We even have present-day sightings, and, of course, not forgetting, we have soft tissue in dinosaur bones and red blood cells in supposedly 65 million year old fossils that accidentally get dropped on the floor of the lab and they break open. And it's soft tissue and red blood cells in there. Which means what? It means that the millions of years ago but are now extinct story is absolute nonsense. It's not true. But they are animals which are contemporary with other animals and with man. They seem unsurprisingly to have been hunted to extinction in most parts of the world, and that doesn't alter the fact that they are contemporary, they exist alongside. Okay? To use dinosaurs to justify millions of years older timescales is circular reasoning, of course. Because you need the one to prove the other, and you need the other to prove the one. Dinosaurs prove that millions of years is true, and millions of years is how we know dinosaurs lived millions of years ago. Right, on we go. That's it, is it? Okay.